Hi, I'm Jeff Walters, and welcome to The Minutes. And thanks for listening today. It's great to have you along on The Minutes this week. This is a City of Thunder Bay podcast. The Minutes takes a look at what happened at Thunder Bay City Council this past week. But this week we have a special edition of the show, looking at how the City of Thunder Bay operates. We have a couple of feature interviews with city management and administration, explaining how city services run all year long. You can find The Minutes wherever you get your podcasts, including our YouTube channel and our website, thunderbay.ca/theminutes. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, just hit that subscribe button. Well, it's a service that virtually everybody in Thunder Bay relies upon. Solid waste or garbage pickup and recycling. It helps keep our city clean and helps protect the environment. There are many changes coming to this service in the coming months and some major changes that have been already implemented in the past couple of years. Jason Sherband is the manager of solid waste and recycling services with the city. Jason, thanks for coming into the Minute Studio today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeff.
So let's look back over the past couple of years. Probably one of the biggest changes, how the recycling program operates in Thunder Bay. So how have those changes been going?
Yeah, you know what? The changes have been going great. So, just to sort of go back and help, people understand, over the last 3 years, so from 2023 to the end of 2025, all municipalities in the province of Ontario are transitioning to what we call full producer responsibility, meaning the producers of paper products and packaging, are all now 100% responsible, not only for the program financially in the province, but operationally as well, right? So the City of Thunder Bay transitioned its program on July 1st of 2024. So we're getting on to a year into this now. And obviously the big change with that was, rolling getting rid of the blue bag program, if you will, right? The historic blue bag program in Thunder Bay and moving to the automated recycling carts. But I think, a few bumps along the way to start. Obviously it's change and some people aren't, certainly aren't comfortable with change. But I think for the most part now, people are getting used to it. And I think we're hearing more positive now than negative. And
also, I guess, a big expansion in what we took in for the program as well. That was before the carts came out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always say, I think we handed the program off in a good place, right? So a few years before that, we expanded the program to include all 1 and 7 plastics. Prior to that, it was, 1 and 2 plastics with a neck and bottles, and I think there was a lot of confusion there. So, expanded that program. We've got a comparable program now. I always say it's comparable to any municipality in the province in terms of, what's acceptable, right? So certainly handed it off in a good place, and I'm hoping only good things come of this in the future, with hopefully maybe the program even be expanded more by producers.
Yeah, okay, and that's up to the producers at this point.
Absolutely, yeah. It's 100% up to producers now, and I think when all municipalities in the province transition through at the end of 2025, and so when we get into 26 and beyond, I do envision some changes to the program where you may see some expansion of even more items that can be accepted in your cart now.
Okay, yeah, really interesting, really interesting. If we talk about leaf and yard waste, I know there were some changes that happened to it this year. We went from a couple collections to more than a couple collections. Yeah, what happened there?
Yeah, so part of our sort of our organics or green bin implementation plan is council did approve the expansion of the curbside leaf and yard waste program, right? And so historically, up until 2024, we had 2 collections, one in the spring and one in the fall. In 2024, we expanded that to 3 collections. So what we did is we offered 1 in the spring and we offered 2 in the fall. And then starting in 2025, we're actually expanding the program to 4 collections per year. So we're going to have 2 in the spring and 2 in the fall. Really excited about this. As you can imagine, when you've only got 1 collection in the spring and fall, very hard to time those collections.
Yeah.
Especially in the springtime. If I had to count how many times we've had to move it over the years because, you get a freak snowstorm or something happens in the spring. So be able to set the dates, keep them. People know if you don't get to the early one, there's the later one or vice versa. And certainly the feedback we got in the fall from having the 2 collections was certainly significant. And the stats backed it up. We actually had an increase of 34%.
Oh, that's a big change.
In the fall. With the 2 collections versus 1, meaning that we didn't rob from one to feed the other. we've actually captured more material.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if it
Yeah.
made a difference, and obviously it did.
Yeah.
And what does that mean for the landfill too? If you have less material going to landfill and going through that composting or organics program.
Yeah, absolutely, right? I mean, obviously, landfill airspace and there's a value to that. We often don't think about that, right? It's just a landfill, the garbage goes there, it gets buried, and we sort of wipe our hands of it, so to speak. But there's a value to that, and so less that we bury, more that we can repurpose. Obviously, the great thing about that curbside leaf and yard waste program is we take that material, we compost it, and we give it away free to residents each spring, right? And so I always like to say with that program, true form of recycling, and that it happens locally in the community, and you see the end product. The end product stays here locally
Right.
in the community with the compost. So yeah, it's one of my favorite programs, actually. Yeah.
And there's demand for that compost too. Like when it goes, it goes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the amount of people that are calling our dispatch service in the spring, is that compost ready? Is it ready? And so yeah, there is high demand for it for sure.
Yeah, lots of pickup trucks and lots of
Yeah,
buckets being filled,
absolutely.
right? You kind of alluded it to here, the organics program coming to Thunder Bay. So we've heard that it was going to be potentially this year, but I guess not quite this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So we sort of envisioned when we started out on this that we would implement it in 25. But programs of this nature in this industry do encounter delays. So one of the driving forces is just supply chain issues around the collection vehicles. These are new pickup or new waste collection vehicles or garbage trucks, if you will. But to be able to have them outfitted with the automated arms and all that kind of stuff, there's just been some delays in receiving all the necessary trucks. And then there's obviously securing the processing end of it. So, what maybe people don't understand is when you collect that material, it has to go somewhere and it has to be processed into an end product, right? And so there is no, existing processing facilities in Thunder Bay and Northwestern Ontario. So we are starting the program sort of from the ground up, if you will. And there's just been some delays in terms of securing that processing piece, and obviously the collection vehicles, and so the program as a whole will be delayed until 2026.
And so for the organics, you're not going to ship those anywhere. Like that's going to be processed somewhere in the area.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's not going to be put on a truck, if you will, and shipped somewhere else. It will be processed in the area, which will be kind of nice. And so, like I said, there is no existing facilities in Thunder Bay and the surrounding areas. So we are. When this thing is operational and built and operational, it'll not only be the first of its facility in Thunder Bay, but all of Northwestern Ontario.
And it's different too than I guess the leaf and yard waste pickup, where you can't just put this in a pile and let it compost. You got to do a bit more to it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about food waste, right? And so if you think of food waste, and odor management becomes a big piece of that, right? So it's got to be a proper facility that can manage odors. Can manage the tonnage. We're going to have a lot more tonnage coming in because, one of the things that is an interesting fact is that, about 50% of what folks put at the curb in Thunder Bay is actually food and organic waste. About 43% of that is food waste. About 7% of that is leaf and yard. And we know that because we actually did a 4-season waste audit a few years ago, meaning, throughout all 4 seasons, we sort of looked at what people were putting at the curb, each week, right? And so we have, an idea of what's in the garbage stream, and those numbers are sort of typical of what you would see in any community. So it's a lot of material, and if you start managing that properly, you can see how much you can reduce, how much waste that you actually, goes to landfill.
Yeah, and you were talking about having to get, vehicles set and all that sort of thing. Is there going to be the same vehicle as a garbage truck, or are they going to be a different fleet, or we're still working on that too?
No, the fleet has been procured. We're just sort of waiting on it to arrive, right? And so they will be a different looking truck, if you will. So what we call a split body, so sort of a divider down the middle where we can co-collect both organics and garbage at the same time. So there's efficiencies of going to one stop and being able to collect both. And then obviously having the automated arm piece, right? So being able to go and collect the actual bins and tip them in. So a little bit different in terms of what we would traditionally have on the road now.
Okay, and I think I've seen one of them around town, or at least I saw one, I think, in my neighborhood the other day.
Yes. So the good thing is we have had 2 of the vehicles that have arrived. So those are going as of January of this year. They have been going. They have the divider plate, so you would see the divider down the middle. And so right now we're just obviously filling them with the waste stream. But those will be utilized moving forward to co-collect both organics and garbage when the time comes.
Okay, so you'll be picking up two things with one truck kind of thing.
Two things with one truck, yeah.
Is it kind of the same thing as the recycling trucks have now, where they have the split down the bin down the middle kind of thing?
Exactly, right? So if you think about the recycling program and the carts you have at home, they've got the divider down the middle, right? So fiber on one side, containers on the other. So when it tips in the truck, it's divided, right? And so it's sort of a similar concept, if you will, to collecting garbage in organics, right? You would tip the organics bin, it would go on the side where the food waste is, and then you'd tip the garbage and it would go on the side where the garbage is. Yeah. So
Okay.
same concept.
So once the organics program is in place, is that going to impact garbage collection at all?
Yeah, I think, one of the big things, not only do we have a provincial obligation to implement the program, the organics program, but we actually have to hit a 50% reduction target of food waste. So simply put, we can't just implement the program and hope that people participate. We've got to hit a target, right? And so you've got to look at different policies and mechanisms to put in place to encourage people to do that. And I always use sort of the 30-30-30 rule, meaning like 30% of the people that we provide the bins to in the program to will be eager, and there won't be much coaching, if you will, to get them going. There'll be a third that'll kind of be on the fence, right? And that will be the encouragement and the promotion, education, and the benefits of the program to kind of get them on board. And then there'll be probably 30 that, maybe a little bit more stubborn, if you will, right? And so sometimes it's those policy changes, if you will, to help sort of nudge and encourage those folks as well, right? So I think what we'll probably be looking at is probably an every other week garbage collection when the time comes. And if you look at that, as I go back to my last statement about, 50% of what you put at the curb is food and organic waste. So now we've got an expanded leaf and yard waste program to have more options for people to put that material. But if you're participating in the program, and almost half of what you're putting in is food waste, if you're doing it correctly, there shouldn't be much left over, if you will, to be putting out on a weekly basis, right?
Right. Well, I remember I lived in Halifax a number of years ago now, and they had the same program then, and they did garbage every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So this isn't new just to the municipal world then.
It's not new, and I know a lot of other municipalities in Ontario that I've tried it weekly with garbage, and I've had to move to bi-weekly, and I've seen their numbers spike considerably. Right. So those are some of the things we're going to have to look at when we roll things out. Yeah.
And as you said, I guess compared to the or the leaf and yard waste program, this is a benefit to the landfill again.
Absolutely, yeah. You think of 40% of the over 40% of the stream is food waste. You can imagine if that's not actually getting buried, right? So so it all impacts the landfill. It's all sort of all connected, if you will, right? When you look at disposal and collection and diversion, they're all interlinked and connected, and so it's only going to improve the airspace at the landfill and extend the life of it.
Right,
which is important.
Yeah. Those eagles though aren't going to have such as good pickings, I guess.
No. That eagle population out there might not be happy with us.
I'm sure they'll still do okay. I'm sure they'll still figure it out. So essentially three bins at the end of the driveway on collection day at some point.
Absolutely, yeah. Eventually, over the next few years, what you will see is obviously you've got your cart for recycling now, and then you will see one for garbage and then one for organic. So eventually you'll be 3 at the end of your driveway. Yeah.
Are we going to color code them probably?
They will be, yeah. So when we say green bin program, is because the organics bin will be green. The garbage program or the garbage bin be black, and then obviously your sort of gray cart, if you will, right now for the recycling. So they'll all be different colors. Yes.
Okay. We'll have a more colorful end of the driveway
on
collection day.
Yeah.
Apartment buildings, multi-unit buildings. I know that this is completely different than just doing a traditional household. How is it different?
It is, and it's its own. It is. I always say it's its own animal because it is. Single family households a little bit easier to roll out. When you get into multi-res, space becomes an issue, right? Where do you put carts? And so, it's working with that sector a little bit differently. And on the recycling side, it has taken a little bit longer for GFL to roll out those carts to that sector, and it is coming along. But So we're doing that evaluation now. Over the last year or so, we've been doing some route assessment analysis to sort of see where those problematic areas and how we would deal with multifamily. The way we have our rollout staggered is that we will look after the single family households first, sort of get that going, and then sort of roll out the multifamily the year after. That's how we're looking at it. There may be some buildings that we roll out at the same time just because of how things work out. But when we look at it, we want to get good at single family, get that sorted out, and then look at the multifamily, knowing that that's a different challenge, right?
And are we obligated to do that as well? I know you said we have to hit that diversion 50% rate. Does that include resident or multi-residential?
Yeah,
as well?
it's as a whole. Yeah, we've obviously committed as the city to be doing multi-res. We obviously we provided multi-res service on the recycling side when we were doing the program, and that's sort of rolled over. And then once we do that, then we'll have a look at what it looks like for the industrial, commercial, and institutional sector. There's been no commitments on that yet. I would say we've got our hands full, if you will, with single family first, and then multifamily, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I was going to say the commercial sector. What are the different challenges of that compared to residential?
Yeah, and again, a lot of it is space. It's tight quarters in some of these locations, right, where you can fit carts and bins and stuff like that. And so we've got to look at that sector as a whole, and how best can we service that sector when it comes to new programming like organics, the switch over to carts. Some are a lot easier to switch over, and some are just more challenging, right? And it's not just Thunder Bay. Those are challenging sectors in any municipality, right? And so one size doesn't necessarily fit all. So we have some work to do in that regard.
Anything that you want to see expanded in the future? I'm thinking of hazardous waste and kind of the other, maybe the smaller programs that you run.
Yeah, you know what? I look at 2024, and there's a couple of things that we did in 24 that I think are worth highlighting that kind of get lost, right?
Sure.
And some of these smaller programs, if you will. So we launched in late summer last year what we called Second Spin. And it was a bike recycling program that we launched. And so at the landfill, we see a lot of used bikes that come in there that people just are throwing them out. And so we put a program in place where we take ones that can be repurposed, and we've got a whole sort of system set up, if you will, to be able to give those back to the community. And it was hugely successful when we launched that program. So, we're hoping to build on that this year, which is kind of neat. And then we launched last year what we call community recycling trailer, right? So we've got available now to the average resident or community groups, volunteer groups, if you will, to be able to rent this trailer out free of charge, and to be able to do cleanups in the community, right? So we're always working on these little small niche programs outside the big program. But to answer your question in terms of how we'd want things to expand, yeah, I'd love to see programs such as like mattresses at the landfill. We see a ton of mattresses coming in there. Wouldn't it be cool to be able to do something and divert those, And there's obviously challenges geographically here in Thunder Bay, but sort of looking at some of those niche programs and how we can divert that waste as well.
Yeah, because I guess they're just put in with regular garbage right now, right? They're a large item, but
absolutely, yeah. It's one of those things where it gets caught up in equipment and all that kind of stuff, right? So there are municipalities now in other parts of the province that have got those programs, are starting to roll those out. But it's things like that, looking at some of these niche things and how can we maybe do better.
Yeah. And as you said, I guess geography is the challenge, right? Because we got to ship stuff for those niche kind of programs.
That is the problem. It's not like down east where you maybe don't have it in your city, but you can ship it a half hour, an hour down the road. We just don't have that luxury here, right? And so it's kind of like the organics program, right? When you're looking at it, you're building from the ground up, literally, right? It's not as if your neighbor has a processing facility and you can just ship it there, right? So obviously a lot more challenging, which makes it fun too, right? But obviously it's a little bit different for sure.
And for the organics program, since we're going to have this facility here, are we anticipating to get organics from other places as well?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see as things evolve. Obviously, this facility will be constructed, for the city of Thunder Bay in a sense that's why it will be here. But yeah, there are certainly with the regulatory requirements, some of the larger industrial, commercial, institutional facilities here in the city have obligations under that provincial policy statement as well.
Okay, yeah.
so that they will need to utilize that. And yeah, hopefully it opens the doors for maybe some smaller communities in the Northwest and around the area to want to do something. But it certainly opens the door for that, where right now there's just not that opportunity.
Yeah, and then I was meaning to ask you this earlier too. The end product of the organics,
Yeah.
it's obviously a cooked compost, I guess you could
Yeah.
say. What do we do with it?
Yeah, so whoever is operating this facility, that will be their, part of their responsibility is to utilize that end product. And the great thing about that is part of the regulatory requirements is you have to obviously do something beneficial with the end product.
Okay,
right?
yep.
And so this will be on just offering it to residents, because it'll be at a much larger scale, right? So, I know down east and stuff, farmers is one thing that love this kind of material and stuff, but there will be a beneficial end use for it, and I think it'll be highly coveted in terms of a nutrient-rich compost.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough. Jason, all my questions. Anything else you want to add before I let you go today?
Yeah, no, I think it's just, we've got a lot of change coming over the next few years in terms of the city's solid waste management system. I think the first sort of leg of it was last year with the recycling changes, right? And so, but yeah, we've got, carts coming for garbage. We've got an organics program coming. There's going to be a lot of change coming, and I think exciting change, and I think it's exciting in terms of what the solid waste management system will look like here over the next few years.
Jason, I appreciate you coming in today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Jason Sherband, he is the manager of solid waste and recycling here in Thunder Bay, and he joined me today in the Minutes studio. And a big thanks for listening to the Minutes this week. Of course, if you want more information about City Council, agendas, or minutes, just visit thunderbay.ca/council. If you want to listen to past episodes or maybe provide some feedback, visit thunderbay.ca/the minutes. You can also find the Minutes wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, you can find us on YouTube and on our website as well. That's thunderbay.ca/the minutes. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, just hit that subscribe button. I'm Jeff Walters. Thanks for watching this week. We'll chat again next week. Make it a great day.